Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Project Safe Neighborhoods Training Part 1 of 2, Completing Your PMT Report. 2 in this training series covers subrecipient reporting and a walkthrough of reporting in the PMT system. We urge you to view the recording once available. I'm Erica, and I'm the Task Lead and Contract Support on BJA's Planning, Performance, and Impact team. Before we started, I'd like to turn it over to Lauren Choi with BJA to provide some opening comments.
Thank you, Christina. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for attending our training today on the Project Safe Neighborhoods, or PSN, performance measures. Our goal today is to provide you with information on what we're looking for from fiscal agents and sub-grantees when you complete the PMT report for the program. I'm sure to stress that we place great value on the information you report in the PMT. The better information we receive, the better we can tell the story of the important work that takes place in the PSN program, which helps ensure future funding and informs program oversight, which is crucial to continued success. I'm now going to turn it back over to Christina, who will begin the presentation. And thank you again for joining us today.
Here's an overview of what we will cover during this training session. What grantees and subrecipients need to report. Performance measure, questionnaire overview, goals and data practices, and we will check information and resources. There are 2 types of questions you will need to respond to: performance and narrative questions. The performance are a series of questions that measure outcomes of grant activities and demonstrate the accomplishment of goals and objectives of BJA programs. Grantees report on performance measures in each quarterly reporting period. A series of narrative questions related to the grantee's specific goals, objectives, barriers, and successes are reported on semi-annually in January and July. The performance measure questionnaire outlines all of the questions grantees are required to respond to. The link to send performance measures is shown on your screen. This can also be found on the BJA Performance Measures webpage. The PSN questionnaire are listed here. You can PDF questionnaire to see the skip patterns of questions based on activities you conducted during the reporting period. We use the PDF of the questionnaire as a guide to track relevant data in your files in the interval that's easiest for you. Then, to report, you can add the figures to get your reporting period totals. If you have questions on any of the performance measures, please don't hesitate to reach out to the BJA PMT Help Desk. Back over to Lauren for the next section.
Thanks, Christina. When establishing clear goals, there are several methods that can be used, one of which is setting SMART goals. SMART acronym to ensure goals are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So let's talk about SMART goals further. You want to ensure they are specific, which clearly defines the desired outcomes or results. Measurable, there should be measurable progress towards the completion of the goal. Achievable, the goal should be challenging yet realistic given the grantee's resources. The goal aligns with the grant application and allowable uses of funds. And time-bound, the goal should be completed within the grant period. In the SMART goals, we outlined a few leading questions that can help you when developing good goals and objectives for the narrative section of the PMT. Here we provide some leading questions for fiscal agents to consider when developing their goals and objectives so that you can provide a robust and detailed narrative that we require. And make sure your goal is specific. Some questions to consider is, what will be accomplished by the fiscal agent and the subrecipients? What actions will the fiscal agents and subrecipients take, and who's involved from the fiscal agent agency and subrecipients? In drawing your goal so that it is measurable, some questions to consider is, what tricks will the fiscal agents and subrecipients use? What indicators of success by the fiscal agent and subrecipients? Your goal should also be achievable. Consider questions like, how will the fiscal agent and subrecipients accomplish the established goals? The tools and skills needed. And if your goals are relevant, consider the following questions. What is the overall relevance of the goal to the PSN project? How does it align to the PSN program? You will want to ensure your goals are time-bound. Some questions to think about include, what are the deadlines? Is there a sense of urgency for some deliverables? Your goal and objectives should be developed in consideration of these questions and should contain the level of detail and information that can answer these questions. Now let's take a look specifically at the narrative section of the PMT. As mentioned earlier in the webinar, you, the grantee, are required to complete the narrative section of the PMT on a semi-annual basis. Several columns of the PMT narrative section, which include goals, objectives, the status of that goal, the progress and barriers toward that goal, and planned activities for the next 6 months. In the column of the report, the established goals are entered here. You will see there are fiscal agent goals that should be entered. These goals are set for the duration of the project and should remain consistent throughout each reporting period. The fiscal agent goal, the subrecipient goal should also be entered. Once fiscal agents receive BJA approval for each subrecipient, fiscal agents are expected to enter each subrecipient's overall goal in this section of the PMT. Reminder, all goals should be SMART, that is specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. It's important to keep in mind that if you are a fiscal agent who has been approved to perform programmatic activities, in addition to the administrative responsibilities of administering the PSN program, please ensure your goals and objectives reflect this the case by providing a detailed narrative outlining what you are doing as the fiscal agent to oversee the PSN program, and provide a detailed narrative as to the programmatic activities you are undertaking as well. Fiscal agents will select the status of the goals entered. The options provided is not yet started, delayed, in progress, completed, and no longer applicable. The next PMT narrative is progress and barriers. From the perspective of the fiscal agent and subrecipients, once they are approved by BJA, fiscal agents are to provide detailed progress, achievements, and changes towards each goal for the last 2 quarters. This information should be specific and demonstrate the work completed in the last 6 months as it relates to each specific goal by the fiscal agent and each subrecipient. Include an explanation as to the status of each goal. If the status you selected for a goal is delayed, provide an explanation as to the delays or challenges the fiscal agent and or subrecipient encountered in their progress toward that goal. In the planned activities column, fiscal agents should provide a detailed outline of the activities that will take place by both the fiscal agent and its subrecipients in the next 6 months. Slides, we provide examples of the PMT narratives that contain SMART goals for fiscal agents and subrecipients throughout the different phases of implementation of your award. It's important to remember that you, the fiscal agent, should complete the narrative section of the PMT and provide a detailed update for your subrecipients, even if your subrecipients are reporting their data directly into the PMT themselves. In this scenario, we provide examples of a PMT narrative where the award just recently started. As you have limited information at this point and have not expended any award funds, we put 2 different examples that still meet the SMART method. For those fiscal agents who have not yet developed their goals or who have developed their goals and objectives but have not yet started implementation, we provide examples 1 and 2. Let's turn to example 1. This is an example of a goal where the fiscal agent has not yet defined their goals and objectives. Therefore, their goal is entered as follows. To work with PSN Task Force and local USAO to determine the PSN strategy goals and objectives for the fiscal year that reduces violent crime and addresses violent crime reduction. You see there's a note included here in the bottom to indicate that there are no subrecipients selected at this time. In the barriers section, it clearly outlines what the fiscal agent has done in the past 6 months, and the narrative is as follows. The fiscal agent is continuing to work towards addressing the requirements of the active award conditions to be able to access award funds. The fiscal agent has submitted our revised budget for PJ approval, which is currently under review. So that's an example of what a narrative could look like in the first example of the goal. Under the planned activities column, it clearly outlines what activities will take place in the next 6 months. And then the example narrative entered is the fiscal agent will hold virtual meetings discussing the identification of the PSN goals and objectives for the fiscal year. So the narrative provides specific details as to who is executing the work, the responsible parties involved, and outlines specific actions that will have taken place in that reporting period. It also outlines the activities that are planned for the next 6 months. Now, I won't read through all of example 2, but the narrative demonstrates a fiscal agent who already defined their goals and objectives, but have not yet started implementation of their award. Therefore, the goal is entered as follows. To partner with a local police department that will utilize the PSM program to fund hotspot patrols within targeted jurisdictions that have a history of gang and gun violence activity. So this goal was outlined and initially established in the fiscal agent's program narrative. It's a bit more specific. However, you will notice that they do not specify legal entity as they have not yet selected a subrecipient. In this, we provide an example of a fiscal agent goal and a subrecipient goal of a grantee who has already begun implementation. The example of a fiscal agent goal is as follows. To work with the action committee to select subrecipients that will address violent crime and gang reduction. So in the progress and barriers section, the narrative that is entered is detailed and specific and has an update towards this goal, which is the fiscal agent received prior BJ approval to select city's police department to provide increased quarterly trainings to local law enforcement agencies. The fiscal agent has fully executed their subrecipient. If you look in the planned activity section, the following is outlined. The agent will continue to participate and facilitate monthly PSN task force meetings. So again, the information here clearly outlines specific and detailed information as to what the fiscal agent has done in this reporting period and what they plan to do in the upcoming 6 months toward their overall goal. Here, the subrecipient goal entered beneath the fiscal agent goal. It's important to keep in mind that this subrecipient was already approved by BJA. Therefore, the subrecipient's legal name is entered and their goal is entered as follows. To increase the number of trainings provided to law enforcement agencies in the Eastern District of X, with training specifically focused towards laying the foundations on a gun case. So update on the subrecipient activities should be entered by the fiscal agent. Again, you as the fiscal agent should be conducting daily monitoring of your subrecipients and should know what type of activities that took place in that reporting period. So please continue to read these examples and updates so you can understand the detailed information that is required to be entered for the fiscal agent and subrecipient narratives. This slide represents the fiscal agent and subrecipient narratives in which all goals and objectives have been completed. The fiscal agent goal is entered as follows. To work with local police department and execute suppression and intervention activities. Their goal status is entered as completed, and their update on the goal is entered as follows. The fiscal agent has verified the subrecipient's final performance report and final financial report and has provided reimbursement to the subrecipient. This narrative here is specific and detailed and outlines what activities the fiscal agent executed towards completion of their goal. In the plan activity section, the fiscal agent clearly outlines the last remaining step, which is the fiscal agent will move forward with closeout of the award. In the example of the subrecipient goal was entered as to coordinate with the gang violence task force to fund overtime to conduct hotspot patrols of high violent crime areas. Their is as follows. The recipient's gang task force completed their overtime patrol of targeted high violent crime areas and submitted all invoices and documentation to the fiscal agent. In both fiscal agent and subrecipient examples, the narratives provided detailed information as to why each goal was considered completed. It provides details of who was involved and what activities took place during that reporting period. So we find a few do's and don'ts as reminders for you, the fiscal agent, when you make your PMT report submission. Remember, do enter narratives whose activities were executed using those specific award funds. Activities should be varied and specific to that particular year and award funds. And I know many of the fiscal agents have multiple fiscal year awards, so this is important to keep in mind. Do not copy or paste a narrative that was entered from a previous fiscal year. This will be change requested back to you for further revisions. These are consistent goals and objectives in each reporting period to enter different goals and objectives So goals that have been altered or goals that are no longer applicable should have been approved via a programmatic scope submission. And if you have any questions on this point, please feel free to reach out to your DOJ grant manager. Do ensure the report you attach in Just Grants is for the correct award, for the correct reporting period, and in the correct PMT format. Do not attach the quarterly report. Please remember that the semi-annual report will automatically populate the previous quarter's data. You should only be attaching one PMT report via PDF. And now I will turn it back over to Christina.
Thank you, Ben. We will share some tips on data quality best practices. Providing data through performance reporting is critical and allows BJA to effectively respond to data requests from Congress or the White House, and also in response to federal audits. We will assign a designated staff person to coordinate all performance measure data collection and entry to ensure consistency. This is the first time you will report data. Make sure you are familiar with the data you will need to collect and report. You do this by reviewing the PDF version of the performance measure questionnaire. Each person is aware of the data collection and reporting process, so fill in if the designated staff person is unavailable or leaves the role. Available data collection methods, including management systems or other databases, spreadsheets, or tracking intake forms. If part organizations are included in your program design, be sure to engage them from the start in the planning process. Formalized agreements are needed to ensure that necessary data is collected and the program meets its goals and objectives. Ensure all data you receive from contracted service providers is reviewed and validated before completing the entry. Here are sources to assist you with reporting. The first, link to the PSN Performance Measure Questionnaire, which is also posted on the BJA Performance Measures webpage. We urge you to view our subrecipient reporting video, which includes helpful information and best practices on managing subrecipient reporting in the PMT. We will cover the topic of subrecipient reporting specific for the PSN program in part 2 of this training series. Finally, the grants team has developed a helpful video linked here that is a step-by-step guide on how to upload a PMT report into Just Grants. Here is information for the BJA PMT Help Desk. Our hours are Monday through Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern Time, except for federal holidays. We start every email within 24 hours, so please don't hesitate to send us an email, even if it's after business hours. We encourage you to reach out to us with any questions related to the PMT system, including to unlock previously submitted reports, so for reporting grant activity, or for questions on your program's performance measures. Should direct their questions about their awards to you as the prime before reaching out to the PMT Help Desk. The desk has limited ability to help subrecipients outside of creating or unlocking accounts. If you have specific questions about your subawards, please contact your fiscal agent today, and don't hesitate to reach out with any questions you may have. This concludes today's presentation.